Hello, and welcome to my deck profile. So today's going to be a slightly different setup, where effectively my editing software is not great. The sound quality is not great, but the Banlist just came in, and I want to do something for a video on my Lair of Darkness deck. Obviously, I like this deck a lot to be throwing so much into this, so let's just get it opened. Also, do note on the side, I will get to those cards momentarily. So, that being said, I do have some tokens, got the extra deck here, but I'll go with the main deck first. So we have Tour Guide of the Underworld twice, followed by the lovely Lilith, Lady of Lament, playing her at 3, of course. And I've got something weird. We're playing a rogue deck. Why not try something out? Flip, tribute one other monster, and if you do, special summon one fusion monster from your extra deck, but destroy it during the end phase of this turn. Just special summon. So if there's no restrictions on fusion summoning, there's a whole, wide array of options. I'll get to that shortly afterwards, because it's with instant fusion being out of the picture, there's some losses for more fun stuff I could do with this deck, but this I'm trying out for now, and for lack of other normal summons to do, until I sort of find out what the meta shapes up to be, because I'm also not going to be playing with people face to face, so why not go with something weird? Arima the Wicked Warden at 3, fairly straightforward. Artifact Lancia, this could be replaced by something else quite easily, depending on if banishing is important for my opponent, or rather for most opponents I will be facing online for the next little while. Following that, Artifact Scythe. Yeah, Lancia could be replaced by a second Scythe or something like that, perhaps. But in any case, Scythe is just such a great lockout of the opponent's extra deck, and I know the fact that with Union Care and everything being a possibility, why would I run this? Well, I don't actually have access to Union Care right now, or most of the Duel Overload cards whatsoever. Basically, with the coronavirus right now, unfortunately, that means that, all sort of shipping around here is quite limited. So I'm just making up this deck with the cards I have. That said, I think I'm pretty well equipped, all things considered. We've got next the boss monster of the deck, 2 Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. I think 2 is enough, 3 is too many, just for potential bricks. Next we have Enemy Controller. I really like this for breaking my opponent's boards and using my opponent's monsters as, materials, if not sort of having a way to steal them over for a turn just to, further intercept them. Next, 3 Called by the Grave. This deck does not like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. It does not like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. There's quite a few things that cause issues. And hey, once you tribute a monster and send it to the graveyard with Lair of Darkness, you also probably want to further remove that from the graveyard, so this is the best way to do that. And next, I'm playing 3 Super Polymerization. This is simply because it's always going to be dark as long as Lair's out there, so why not always ensure that I can have the best combination of that. Next I have Terraforming, and Mystic Mine and Lair of Darkness. There's not too much back row removal in this deck, however if I can just replace a Mystic Mine I don't like with a Lair of Darkness, then that's perfectly fine with me. So yes, this being an extra copy of one of those. But Mystic Mine I don't like as a card. I'm quite surprised it wasn't hit on the ban list, but if it wasn't, it's kind of a necessary evil as far as I see it. So after 3 copies of Lair of Darkness, it's time to get into the traps. So I have Metaverse, Lost Wind, and Awaken the Dragon. If my opponent is unfortunate enough of choosing to remove this from the field in some way, yeah, unfortunately they're going to have to deal with a monster that'll be quite tricky to get rid of in the end. Next, I have 3 copies of Trap Trick. This will just kind of get me any, at least a pair of traps that I'm looking for at the time. Thanks very much to Lilith, Lady of Lament. Then I've got 2 Eradicator Epidemic Viruses. The fact that Trap Trick can, search one of these out as long as I have 2 in the main deck, then I think that's a a risk I'm willing to take considering I have other trap cards that are higher priority to bring out with Trap Trick. So I'll get to those now. That being 3 Artifact Sanctums. I'm quite surprised that this card wasn't hit somehow on the list, but considering it hasn't been, well, I might as well use it. So let's move on to the extra deck now. Given how we are trying to stun our opponents, everything we can, first off, got quite a few tokens. We have 4 tokens at the ready, should the board consist of that. And we've got Link Spider to be working with those materials. Following that, we have a Salmon-Great Almirage, a Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Phoenix, and a Beat Cop from the Underworld, who is just tremendous in this deck. It does so much work for just, needing 2 monsters. Technically, they always need to be dark, but given the contents of this deck, you know that's not a problem to reach. Next, I've got Unchained Soul of Anguish. This will come up in the extra deck of having one of my Unchained Soul monsters, but aside from this, it doesn't come up all that often. But man, once you are going second and you do happen to have my kind of going second configuration where there's quite a lot more draw power to sort of dig into the Unchained monsters, this is really fun to use with my opponents, so I can use their monsters if they're trying to work around being tributed. This is just another way of kind of taking what they have and using it for my own purposes. And of course, I'm not going to be using all these chains for decorations without, trying to include Unchained somehow. I mean, this came first, that came second, but it's a nice coincidence. Decode Talker, I'm not so sure of. I'll see if this is worth it or not. I mean, there's quite good odds of having the tokens appear where I want it to at the end of the turn, where these arrows are pointing at, but even still, if my opponent is choosing to have Lightning Storm or something like that, it's a bit of a problem. It's not targeting anything I can't protect with Decode Talker. So we'll see if I can think of a better Link 3, or perhaps a Link 2 later on that'll be better. If I have, something like Verte Anaconda, or if I have something like, Crystron Needle Fiber, or Halquifibrax rather, that'll obviously take priority. So we'll see what this gets replaced with in the future once shipments, reach me at some point. Next, Power Code Talker is a very heavy hitter. All I need to do is make sure that there's a token pointing to its arrow pointing down, or if I have some weird configuration pointing left or right for the arrows. And basically, if this card battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation, quick effect, you can tribute 1 monster this card points to. This card's attack becomes double its original attack during that damage calculation only. So I can swing over something that's 4,500 or less, which is pretty considerable. It's also not in sequence. I can be attacking with another monster first, tribute it, and then power up my Power Code Talker. Next, Nightmare Unicorn, you know what that one does. Then I have Borload Dragon, and the fact that I've got access to Unchained Soul of Anguish, I'm going to try and just use monsters that can be up to a Link 4, but only need, 2 effect monsters. So that's the reason why I'm having Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. Excellent powerhouse in this, and also Topologic Bomber Dragon for a very different reason. Being able to almost count on tokens being generated at the end of the turn of either player's turn, depending on when I'm using enemy controller, for example, or something quite accessible that way. If Lair's on the field, if I can just have a token appear and I don't care about other stuff on my board, well, this is a nice non-targeting way to wipe things out. Then I've got 2 Starving Venom Fusion Dragons. I'd like to have the dragon that requires 3 dark monsters, but I think it's just kind of out of the price range given everything else. So I also like the fact that just having 2 dark monsters in the field, excluding tokens, is pretty reliable in terms of having as material for super polymerization. And then last, it's a weird fusion card, Gaia Drake, the Universal Force. The main thing about this card is it cannot be targeted by or destroyed by the effects of effect monsters, and it's 3,500 attack. So all that kind of comes down to is if I'm starting and I don't have a better choice of monsters to begin the game with, what I will do is I will simply set Summoner of Illusions, face down, set my back row, activate Lair of Darkness if I choose to, and depending on how things go out, if my opponent does end up managing to get to the battle phase with me, it's flipped up. I tribute one of their opponent's monsters for cost, which is how it will work with Lair, and then suddenly Gaia Drake appears, considering the fact that it is absolved from being destroyed by the effects of effect monsters. So with Gaia Drake able to survive the supposedly balanced way of having Summoner of Illusions, destroy a card at the end of the phase that it special summons it out and has no fusion restrictions, let's move on lastly to the side deck. So on the side deck I have another Waking the Dragon, just to keep things interesting. This can of course be replaced quite easily with something else, kind of depending on how much destruction other decks have versus other things that might be other forms of removal. Next I've got my second copy of Lost Wind, just kind of based on if I want to be more reactionary, if I want to be more proactive in terms of how I play, and if I choose to go first or second. This is certainly most effective for going second, and that's Dino-Rest or Prankratops. Funny thing is that if my opponent has special summoned Prankratops, I can try and actually tribute their monster for cost to destroy something, so it's not going to come up too much now that this is still at 1, which is frustrating, but at least it's come up once or twice online, which is fun. The Lone Danger Nessie, really great for searching out the dangers because I'm playing 3 trade-ins. The following cards, of course, are going to be quite a lot of level 8s that don't mind being discarded, and same thing goes for a Diabolos in the main deck. But yeah, having some draw power is nice. Again, for going second, I've got a pair of Lava Golems. Normal summoning is fantastic in this deck, considering it's not always being able to spam out for the first turn, and it's more sort of making the most of your first normal summon, stunning your opponent as they go for their first turn, and then going in for the kill the second turn, or sort of cutting through their resources quite effectively. But if you give them a Lava Golem, this is quite easy to take out in your opponent's turn, especially with Epic Eradicator Virus if you've got Lair on the field or something else like that. Next I have 3 Danger Bigfoots, including 1 North American print. Thanks Kevin for sending that from Canada. Yeah, this guy's from some mythologies, including ones from my home province, so this one's quite near and dear to my heart. Then 2 Danger Thunderbirds, also from my home province, should some back row be lurking around if I choose to be going second as well and worried about that stuff. And then last we have the Abominable Unchained Soul. I might experiment with having 2 of these depending on how things go, and maybe take out the Lost Wind or Waking the Dragon or something like that. But there's interesting stuff that can be done with this one, especially if I want to be more reactionary with how I play the deck and everything. But I'll just be experimenting more online and see how this goes. But that being said, I think it's a good time to wrap it up here. But wait, I do have a few extra things for you guys, just because I've realized this is the start of the format and things aren't quite resolved. So let's get on to the cards I've been considering, but either cards have been taken out due to the ban list that I was planning to work with originally, or just things that are on my mind. So the first series of these, Destiny Hero Malicious, it's gone from 3 to 2 now, but I don't think it's quite worth running in this anymore. The fact that, Tsuchinoko and Jackalope are now to 1, I'm going to miss those, even though they're still not quite affordable enough for me just yet, given everything else. So I'm going to wait on that. So in the meantime, Malicious will not be seeing any play in this deck. Depending on how much destruction is going on with people acquiring Lightning Storms eventually in this slower, maybe more affordable format, we'll see, with people not playing face-to-face so much. When your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a card or cards on the field, negate the effect, then send 1 level 3 or lower dark monster from your deck to the graveyard. It's a normal trap, so it's searchable with Lilith, and with trap tricks, so that's nice. Sending a level 3 or lower dark monster from your deck to the graveyard. I do actually have a Sangan on hand. Couldn't quite fit in this deck. I'll be saving that for another time where, you know, maybe Ties of the Brethren or something is more valid for this. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, this is, you know, a possible plan. Also, Solemn Judgment if I want to go into counter traps, of just being able to say no with this being a control deck. I was ready for Needle Fiber, should I be lucky enough to get it. That card being Link Rebo, and you know where this is going. Yeah, with Blackwing Steam the Cloak. I didn't get the expensive ones, fortunately. There was some really kind of degenerate stuff that a lot of people could be doing with this, including myself. And the fact that this is hosted in a deck that likes to tribute things and make use of tokens and link up into things. Yeah, I was going to do a lot of bad stuff with this, but I won't now. So that's, you know, just the thing of the past. Won't even go into the combos for that. You can just use your imagination. Next, I've got kind of a weird little engine per se, where if I am lucky enough through Duel Overload to have access to Needle Fiber, I could change this deck up a lot in a way. And, you know, assuming that Lair of Darkness is on the field and Caught by the Grave is ready to deal with any Ash. I've got some plants to deal with, namely being Lone Fire Blossom, not being once per turn. I can just tribute and tribute and tribute, and then go into Spore. And then I can Link Reboot away. And then I can banish Lone Fire Blossom and bring it back. And then I've got a tuner and a non-tuner, and I'm ready to go into another Spore out from there, and then go into a Link 3 and potentially climb from there depending on what else I have. Another thing I was considering is that given all the level 8s I have, maybe I could go into rank 8s with kind of a backup plan. Should I choose not to go and bring out Spore if I'm going first, I could, you know, either set up some sort of rank 8 situation, or at the very least, I chose this particular card. Can't quite pronounce her first name just yet, but the Princess of Camellias, where during either player's turn, when a card or effect that targets a card or cards on the field is activated, namely Twin Twister, Cosmic Cyclone, etc., you can tribute one face-up plant monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So I'll be tributing her, give a token to my opponent at the end of the turn. It's not great, but at the very least it's a nice way that I can at least sort of protect my Lair of Darkness or other things that are being targeted. And as well, if I'm lucky enough, I can have Lord Diabolos, Lord of the Lair, in my hand, tribute her for her own cost, and special summon it out from my hand for a bit of an unforeseen sort of thing in terms of dealing with plants and tributing and having some lovely tuners out for Halka Fibrax when it's needed. But anyway, that sums it up for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.